Lesson 6, Unit 2. The decision-making process. All project leaders face issues managing a project. As a project leader, you will face decisions every day. Some will be quite straightforward, while others are more complex. But making decisions is not as simple as one might think. Decisions are not events, like a choice to be made on a specific time. Critical decisions require the input of many stakeholders and use of various sources of information. They require careful planning and a process approach to increase the likelihood of making more effective decisions. When you're faced with making a difficult and critical decision, you can use a decision-making process that consists of 9 steps. That will help you manage and get the best decision. The steps are setting the stage, identifying obstacles, framing the issue, generating alternatives, evaluating alternatives, making a decision, communicating the decision, implementing the decision, and monitoring the decision. Setting the stage means creating the right conditions, the right environment to make an effective decision. It is important that you get the right people to participate in the process. That means key stakeholders, subject matter experts, and even people that may have different point of views. Having a group with diverse perspectives will generate more ideas, but keep it small. The second element is to define the process, making sure all involved understand how the final decision will be made. This might include a consensus, a majority vote, or a decision taken by the project manager. It is important that there is a good environment to run the meeting, a good office space, no interruptions, and supportive of all opinions and points of view. Making critical decisions is often difficult due to the obstacles that limit the decision-making ability to find the optimal choice. One of these obstacles is the cognitive bias. These are the preconceived notions people have when dealing with decisions, such as relying on false assumptions, staying within the status quo, or trying to support initial opinions and ignoring facts. Another obstacle is managing the group, from trying to avoid excessive harmony in the ideas, also known as groupthink, to excessive individualisms, which is the opposite of groupthink. Groupthink is a situation where the group is very homogeneous and is very concerned with maintaining unanimity that they fail to evaluate all the alternatives and options during a decision-making process. It's a situation where all participants in the group avoid disagreements and seek to achieve unanimity without considering alternative opinions or points of view, which can lead to bad decisions. To avoid this situation, the project manager should encourage diversity in opinions, foster original thinking, and even seek external input from other projects or units in the organization. Framing the issue means avoiding the error of developing alternatives before there is a good understanding of the nature of the issue. Root cause analysis helps identify the core of the issue and avoids the mistake of developing solutions for a symptom. In this technique, you ask the question why many times to the issue at hand and thus are able to discover the root causes of the issue. Another tool that helps in this process is the fishbowl diagram, for its resemblance to a fish skeleton. It is also known as the cause and effect diagram. For a given problem, there are many potential factors causing the problem, and they can reveal the possible causes for the problem. Finally, setting clear objectives as to what the solution must be able to achieve. This might include metrics or indicators that will measure the effectiveness of the decision. For any decision, you will need choices. Having alternatives helps make better decisions. One technique used in this step is brainstorming, which is an effective way to generate different ideas and courses of action. People participating in the meeting come up with any idea that may come up with their heads. The goal is to have a good set of ideas using a constructive conflict dialogue, not focusing on criticizing ideas but encouraging an open and creative dialogue that will allow an informed decision. That is the idea behind bringing people with different viewpoints to this meeting. Once there are good alternatives, the next step is to evaluate alternatives and select one for the final decision. One method is the use of variables to evaluate alternatives. It looks at each alternative to see how it meets the objectives set in the previous step. For example, to consider the variables of cost, time, feasibility, risk, ethics, and others. Another method is to create a prioritization matrix. Each alternative is evaluated against the variables and each variable has a weight. Each alternative is ranked against the variable and given a value, and these values then multiply the variable weight. The idea is to have an alternative with the best total score. Making the decision after an evaluation of the pros and cons of alternatives is the next step. But making a decision may create some disagreement. This is the time to review the original assumptions about the issue, the objectives for making the decision, and to set a timeline if it's needed to make a decision. It is important that all participants of this process understand the rationale for selecting the best alternative and making the decisions, even if some might not truly agree with it. If it takes too much time to make a decision by consensus, then as a project manager, you have the responsibility to bring the discussion to closure and force the making of the decision using the best information available at this time. It's important that once a decision is made, to communicate the decision to all those involved. They need to understand the thinking behind the final decision, the changes that the decision will bring, such as changes in plans or strategies. Include all the information that will help people understand the rationale as to why this decision was made and the implications to help solve the issue, especially those that will be responsible for implementing the decision. This might include internal and external stakeholders, project team members, partners, consultants, vendors, beneficiaries, and anybody that will be affected by the decision. The final step in this process is to monitor the implementation of the decision, monitoring the progress and the effectiveness of the decision, provide feedback to the people in charge of implementing the decisions, and you might need to have regular meetings to get updates on the progress. The plan might need some adjustments to the scope, timeline, and budget, making sure the corrections are aligned with the objective. And don't forget to recognize the contribution of those involved in the implementation and celebrate success once implementation is complete and the issue has been resolved.